Hello. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. You're welcome to this week's currency outlook for the 15th to the 19th of August 2022. So let's not take too much time. Let's get down to what we have for this week. I hope everybody can hear me clearly and see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're going to start with the NASDAQ. We're going to be starting with NASDAQ, dollar index, Euro USD, pound dollar, gold, Euro GBP, pound CHF, pound yen. So those are the pairs we're going to be going through. So we're going to start with the US 100, which is also a variation of which is also NASDAQ. So looking at this pair on the weekly, long term, we can see on this pair, we are on the downside because this is the dealing range from this point, from this high to this low. On the weekly, we can see this is a correction on the weekly. So long term, we're on the downside. Well, if we go down to the daily time frame, on the daily time frame, we have a break of structure here. So on the daily, the NASDAQ is bullish. On the daily, the NASDAQ is bullish. So looking at this pair, most likely, it would be gunning for this point to this point. It's already almost there already. So it may be trying to close up this imbalance. As you can see, price hit there, rejected, then rallied back in there. So if we go down to the far time frame, there's a possibility that price may still extend higher into this. So for this pair, this is the dealing range that has to stay for price to remain bullish. This low at 12,951 and this high at 13,561. That's the dealing range. So most likely any dip in here will be seen as an opportunity to go long. Moreover, we have this imbalance here. Hello, can you guys still hear me? Hello, can you guys still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so if this should start to drop, there's a possibility it may try to fill this and move higher. But it doesn't mean you can't take a short position. It doesn't mean you can't take a short position here if you get the opportunity. So what you'll be waiting for here is something like this. You'll be waiting for something like a high, maybe a higher high, or it may be a lower high. But if price makes a higher high and the neckline before it, once price breaks it, you wait for something like this, then you can then take a short position down to this area. That is if we get a rejection from this area. Well, if price does not get rejected from there, then there's a possibility that price may run up to this place. Price may run up to this point before moving lower. So be that as it may, if you do your annotations, this is how your chart is going to look like. This is how your chart is going to look like. You have this daily fair value gap here. That's where price is currently at now. That's where price is currently at, and this upper area also. So the next pair we're going to be looking at is the dollar index. So looking at the dollar index, on the weekly, we can see that this pair is bullish. It's kind of bullish on the weekly. But if you come down to the daily, we've had this break of this point here. So on the daily, we can say that to a large extent, this is his dealing range, this point to this point. That's the dealing range on the daily. You can either use this high, or if you elect, you can use this high. So most likely, this might be a retracement, although price didn't close below this level, but it did below this level. So there might be a little bit of a steep retracement on this pair before it continues back to the downside. So if you go down to your 4-hour time frame, you can see a mitigation, a low, a high, a higher low. So there's a possibility that this pair may run up towards this area, because the dollar index still has some bullish trend. There is no change of character to the downside yet on the 4-hour time frame. Am I on the 4-hour time frame? Oh, sorry, I'm on the 1 hour. We just had a change of character here. So there's a possibility this may run up. There's a fair value gap here on the 4-hour time frame, which also has a fair value gap from here to here. So there's a possibility if price runs up into this zone, if price runs up into this area and gets rejected, then you look for something like this, maybe higher, maybe lower, as the case may be. Once the neckline gets broken, then it may continue to the downside. May continue to the downside. As for the dollar index, because if you look at it, although there's a change of character here, this is the dealing range from this point to this point. So if price knocks out 106.93, if price goes above it, then we have a full possible turnaround on dollar index to the upside. But as long as 103.93, 106.93 is not broken by price, we may see lower prices on the dollar index in line with the retracement. So the next way we're going to be looking at is Euro USD. So if we look at the dollar index, your annotations on your dollar index is going to look something like this. This is what it's going to look like. You have the structure point here. So the next pair we're going to be looking at is Euro USD. So looking at the Euro USD, on the weekly, this pair is still tilted to the downside. On the weekly, it's still tilted to the downside. It's still bearish on the weekly. But if we look at the daily, if we look at it on the daily, we have this break of structure here. And if you notice clearly, there's a consolidation here. There was a consolidation here. This point to this point. Price has broken above it. Body close. So there's a break of this consolidation. So there's a possibility we may see a pullback and a continuation to the upside on this pair. So price may first go back, drop in, because as you can see, price is back into that range. So if we go down now to the 4-hour time frame, question is, where would you be looking for your possible entry? There is this 4-hour imbalance here. There is this imbalance here. Then we have liquidity below this point. So that might be a drawn liquidity. Once price gets there and picks liquidity, then price may go up higher. As you can see, this is an expansion, a consolidation, a breakout. Price may just pull back and then extend higher again. So that's it for the Euro USD. So if you annotate your chart is going to look something like this. Is the levels you have on your chart. So you would wait to see what price does. Already there's a break on the far to the downside. So there's a possibility this may rally up to move back down. But if price takes out this other block, then there's a possibility they will continue higher. They might not come down to fill this area before moving up. So the next one we're going to be looking at is GBPUSD. So looking at the GBPUSD from the weekly time frame, this pair is still tilted. It's still bearish. We have a body close below this level here on the weekly. So a close below this level here. So you can see this is the dealing range. The major dealing range is here. This is the major dealing range on the weekly. It's bearish, but on the daily, we have a bullish setup. We've already had a break. Let me remove all this. This is the most significant break because this was the swing high that was used to take out this low and this area. You can see price has broken above it. Came back there once, didn't make a new high and dropped. So there's a possibility that this may retrace a bit before gunning for these highs here. There's a possibility that might be the drawn liquidity for this week on this pair. This point here. So price may drop, then move higher. If you go down to the 4-hour time frame, as you can see, there's that big imbalance here on this 4-hour. So price may try to close it up. It's already done it, may seek this liquidity, then move higher. Because if you look at it on the 4-hour time frame, it's still moving up. It's still basically moving up. So this pair is still tilted to the upside, though it may retrace a bit before continuing to the upside. So you need to be aware of that. So the next pair we're going to be looking at is, so on your GBPUSD, is if you annotate your chart, is how your chart is going to look like, something like this. So on the 4-hour, you have this first fair value gap here. Then you have this bearish order block on the 4-hour. So this place might offer possible support. If price goes down to it and finds support, then a long position might be taken towards any of these structure points up here. So next what we're going to be looking at is gold. Looking at gold from the weekly point, you can see this pair is still bearish. This is the dealing range. This high to this low is a bearish break of market structure here. So if we look at it now on the daily time frame, we seem to be having a kind of like a bullish scenario on this pair. We're having a bullish scenario. All these swing highs here, especially this and this, price has closed above it. So now the question is, how high can this go? How high can this go? We have this significant high here and this swing high here and this and this. So there's a possibility price may gone for them, but it should come down to the 4-hour time frame and see that price is within a big fair value gap, and above that fair value gap is this bearish order blocking on the 4-hour time frame. So there's a possibility that if price rallies into these points and gets rejected, you either wait for something like this, and a break of structure, or you conservatively wait for price to break this area. Once it breaks this area, then you wait for something like this, then it will move lower. That's what you need to see on gold. Hello, can you guys still hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
We are
we can
hearing
hear
you.
you.
Okay, that's for gold. That's for gold. Then the next one we're going to have is euro pound. So if you have your notations on gold, your notations on gold is going to be looking something like this. The 4-hour time frame is how your notations on gold is going to be looking at. So next pair we're going to be looking at is euro pound. This pair, I don't know whether this pair is confused or what his problem is. If you look at it, it's not very smooth.
That's everywhere.
It's not very smooth. He's looking bullish on the weekly, but this is a steep retracement. It's a very steep retracement. Now, if you go to the daily time frame now, he's bearish. It's clearly bearish on the daily time frame. This is the daily range high. This is the daily range low. You get. Then we have this. There's this other block here. Although it's big, the other block is big. So we have this other block here. So looking at this pair now, and if you notice, we have a fair value gap here and then here. Price is not closing below this fair value gap at 84.26. If you notice that, price is not closing above that. So if you go down to your 4-hour time frame, you can see what price is doing. Price is just basically ranging here, but there has been an expansion. So this might be a consolidation for price to move higher, or a consolidation for price to try to fill in this imbalance and then move higher. So for this pair, I just can't basically see. But like somebody will say, with a gun to my head, I'll tell you this pair might still run up to the upside, but we have equal lows here. So they may try to sweep it first and move back up. So for this euro pound, I can't see. I can't basically say, but there's a possibility he might still retrace higher, because if you draw your fib from this point to this point, he's just at equilibrium. He's back below equilibrium, so he's in buyer's territory. So if he were to be further up here, then yes, we can see that we might see a little bit of retracement. So for this pair, he's at the equilibrium of this range high to this range low. So it can go anyway. So the next, so if you have on your EURGBP, your annotations is going to look something like this. You can see it seems there's a fair value gap on the 4-hour. If you look at it, it seems to have broken it, yes. So it has canceled out this bearish order block. So that's why I'm telling you that it might still run to the upside. On the 4-hour, there is something here. There's fair value gap here. So if these holds as support, if price comes down here and holds as support, it may continue to the upside. But if this area fails, once it fails, just wait for something like this, and then it's going to come down here. That's it for this pair. So the next pair is going to be Euro GBP. This pair is interesting, but the uncertainty on the Euro GBP has me a little bit cautious on this pair. If you look at this pair on the weekly, there's this range that has been happening for the last 6 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 weeks. Price has broken below that area. And you know, once price breaks a significant level, there's a possibility that it might retrace, maybe to retreat to that area or retest that area before moving lower. So if this pair is bearish, there's no doubt about it. This pair is bearish. Drop, consolidation, drop again. So if we look at this pair, on the weekly, you might say this is where it's coming for either of these levels. But we'll go down to the daily time frame and scroll to the left. I'll scroll to the left on the daily time frame. Oh, why is that level? Yes. If we scroll down on the daily time frame, we pick this point, we extend it out into the future. You see, that's where price is. Price is at an untested. You see?
not the mean of that.
Yes, the midpoint. Yes, it's sitting exactly at that midpoint. And this will be the second test of the other block after its creation, because you see, after the other block was created, price came back down.
First.
So if you have this now,
Okay, correction.
you see, this point is where price is exactly at. The midpoint here is exactly at this level. As where price is, if you extend it into the future, as where price is sitting at now. So there's a possibility if this place holds as support, price is going to go back up to this area. But that doesn't mean it's going to reverse. No, it just means that you might see a little bit of a retracement and then it move back to the downside. So to be on the safe side, what you can do is this. You note the 50% of this range. That's last week's dealing range. And that comes in here. That comes in at this level here. This level here. So no matter what happens, as long as price stays below this level here, that's at 15.15, there's a possibility to still go back down. But should at any time price move above this area, then you're going to see a very, very steep retracement. Remember, it just broke out of a 6-week consolidation here. That's at 1529, 1.1529. So there is a possibility it may try to reach back into that area before moving lower. So this play is bearish, but you might expect a little bit of a bounce. So what you'll be waiting for is something like this. You need to see it's made a low. The question now is it going to be something like this and this? Or will price do something like a high, this, sweep this low, come back, rally up, then give you something like this? So those are the two possible scenarios. It may not get this low. What they may just do is just sweep last week's low. They may sweep it for liquidity. Once they do that, then be rest assured that the retracement is going to be very strong. It's going to be very, very strong. So that's it for this pair. This pair, there's a possibility to retrace into the new week. It may retrace before continuing to the downside as it has broken a major level. So if you do your annotation is going to be looking something like this. You have so much on my chart. So this is where price is sitting now. So we have this fair value gap here and this fair value gap here. If they act as resistance, they may send price lower. But if they can't hold price may most likely run up to retest this level here. They may run up to retest this level here. So the next pair we're going to be looking at is pound yen, the last pair. Look at it from the weekly, this pair is basically everywhere and nowhere. Although on the weekly, he seems to have a bullish bias. But if you look at what it's playing out, there are weeks. So a lot of indecision on this pair for now, on the weekly time frame. Well, if we go to the daily seems to have a downside move. Why? This point here, this area here, tells me that this has, although it seems everywhere, but he's more tilted to the downside. So if we go into the 4-hour time frame, we have this big imbalance here. So there's a possibility that if price drops in here and finds support, you may see something like this for this high before it starts moving low. That's scenario one. The other scenario is that you may see price rally then something like this, then drop down. So either of these may play out. So the levels you would then be watching on the 4-hour to decide that, as if you're going to use the 4-hour time frame, is either this high, 1679, or this low. Either of them. If price breaks this low, then be rest assured it's coming to sweep this 161.12. Might even move lower to fill this lower. But if price does not break here and breaks here, that's and breaks 162.79, then it's going to come for 163.95. So those are the levels that you need to watch out for. So do I have any questions before we call it a night? So in the absence of any questions, I thank everybody for taking their time to attend. The recording will be posted on the YouTube channel. So take your time to attend, subscribe, and like and share. So I wish everybody a beautiful night's sleep, a blessed week ahead, and a wonderful trading week. So good night, everybody.